Welcome. New edition of Caught Stealing, the Fantasy Baseball podcast here at Fantasy Alarm. Yes, football's getting all the pub right now, but do not neglect your fantasy baseball teams. I've said it once, and I'll say it again. Too much blood, too much sweat, too many tears has gone into our fantasy baseball teams throughout the whole season. Do not lose focus now, and to ensure that you don't do that, Matt Selz and I are here talking all fantasy baseball news. We do have Thursday night football tonight, and we do have a resident Chiefs supporter here. So we'll get Matt's quick 30-second take on the
Despite
game.
my color scheme behind me, I'm going for the team in red.
It's okay. I'm wearing purple too, and I'm thinking the Chiefs are probably going to win this one. But we'll get that take at the end, Matt, because we got
Yes.
fantasy baseball news to talk about.
Yes,
And
we
last
do.
thing I want to do is say don't neglect your fantasy baseball teams. And the first thing we do is talk about fantasy football.
Correct.
So
Yes.
we'll stick that at the end. Let's talk a little bit of baseball here, and let's talk about it. We saw it on X. Kyle Tucker's supposed to be back Friday, aka tomorrow, as we're recording this on Thursday. I know they came out and said there was a little bit of a fracture there, but I'm going to still say it in this way because I want to prove a point. That's a pretty bad shin contusion my man Kyle Tucker had, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all kind of knew about 3 weeks into it that it wasn't just a bone bruise. Because normally with a bone bruise, like after a few weeks, you can just hop yourself up on some ibuprofen and go play through it. Um, yeah, I mean, it must have been hiding that fracture pretty well because it took till what, late last week for the X-rays in June to magically show a a fracture. It's like, yeah, the entire baseball world knew that was happening. Where the heck have you guys been?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. I think the Astros manager phrased it as, we hope to get him back Friday, assuming that he comes back okay from the last few days of work. So we're certainly nearing the part of the season where you can kind of start to get Kyle. So if you're in a weekly league, your best hope is that he comes back Friday and gets his feet wet over the weekend, and then you can pop him in to your lineup starting Monday, and then be full go. If you're a daily, I'm waiting until at least the second game to put him in there to see what's up. I mean, we already saw the Diamondbacks bring back Christian Walker, play him in the first game, and then give him a day off the second game. So we'll see. But that's good news. Obviously, this point in the season, you're just hoping to scrape by with a handful of homers and maybe a couple of RBIs or a couple of stolen bases from him.
That's pretty much all you can do. Astros are up 5.5 games in the American League West. So good to get Kyle Tucker back. Once he's out there, you're rolling him out there. No
Correct.
ifs, ands, or buts about it. He last played June 3rd, but through 60 games to begin the year, he was already at 19 homers and 10 stolen bases. Like he was en route to a massive season. That was just what's going to happen. And, it's just, you always hate when those pesky bone bruises keep you out for over 3 months, but I digress. Bad bone bruise there. But some other positive news around the league. Matt Chapman of the Giants gets paid. Good for him. Good deal. 6 years, 151 mil that he gets with the Giants. And if I'm not mistaken, it was either this offseason or last offseason. He had some issues not quite getting what he thought that he was going to get. So it was this offseason.
He was one of the Boris ones who got the 3-year deal that's really only a 1-year deal because it has an option every single. And it's interesting because he also did not play in yesterday's game. I was watching that game. My wife is a Diamondbacks fan. They are currently playing the Giants. It was noted a few different times that Matt Chapman was out of the game last night, and then news broke afterwards that he had signed the deal. So I'm like, ooh, maybe he was up chit-chatting with the GM about the deal instead of playing the game. But no, congrats to him. It is a big signing for the Giants, who we should all watch out for. They have cash.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know, they privately funded their stadium. They have paid that off. So all of those loan payments that were going to the bank to pay off their gorgeous baseball stadium can now go to free agents, which, let's just say they need a new second baseman because Marco Luciano cannot field a baseball right now. But yeah, Matt Chapman, I mean, for a fantasy perspective, Colby, does this change any outlook for you for Matt Chapman, knowing he's going to be in San Francisco for 6 years?
I don't think so. I mean, even this year he's shown, I mean, he's got a 778 OPS right in line with his career numbers, still 20 plus homer guy. I think the big revelation with him this year, and I think regardless of where, even if he wasn't playing in San Fran, regardless of where he went, he had 11 stolen bases
Yes,
into the season. He has 13 this year. He more than doubled
his
his
career total.
in this season. That's the thing because Matt Chapman, if you take his steals to where he's been in the past couple years, 25 homers, 3 to 4 bags. That's fine. 25 homers with a stolen base total in the low teens is a very different story.
That's a whole nother tier of third baseman.
Exactly. And that's, I think, when we get into 2025 draft prep, I think that's going to be the question on Chapman. We don't have to worry about him in San Fran. We've seen him hit home runs. He's going to be fine there. The big question is going to be in 2025. Do you buy the 2024 Chapman stolen base ledger, or do you buy the 2017 to 2023 Matt Chapman stolen base ledger? I think that's going to be the conversation with him for next year.
I would agree. Right now, I would say I need more than 1 year of stolen bases.
Mhm.
But it is an encouraging sign for sure. I will say I do think his batting average benefits from being in San Francisco because there are some alleys there that you can double. I mean, there's triples alley in kind of center right, whatever. It's not really dead center. It's kind of it's like going northeast, right? Um, and then there's some alleys in left center where you can double up, and that'll help not only his batting average but also RBI totals.
Mhm.
So I think it's a really intriguing move. Nice job by the Giants to lock up a premium bat in the middle of that order for the next 6 years. So congrats to and maybe Scott Boras starting to make amends with some of his clients because Jordan Montgomery has been hot on his tail about my agent screwed me over. That's why I've been so bad this year is because he he literally called him out. He's like, yeah, my agent cost me a good season this year.
Yep. And you called it with Chapman. He's hitting 257 at home compared to 237 on the road, batting average about 20 points higher at home. So hit the nail on the head there. Shohei Ohtani, obviously, he's owned in pretty much every fantasy league, even if it's a 4-team, 1-player league. He's probably
Even if it's
owned
an AL league, somebody's figured out a way to get Shohei Ohtani in there.
just in the case that he makes his way over there somehow. But ultimately, as we're looking at Shohei Ohtani here, it's just talking about what is he going to do. So we don't have to spend much time on it, but it's a talking point. So let's do it. 44 homers, 46 stolen bases. Does he get to 50-50 by season's end?
I think so. I mean,
Fair enough.
4 steals, not that hard to do in 3 weeks. It's basically one a week, and he gets there, right?
And the Dodgers
Homers,
have 20 games left. 22
yeah,
games left, excuse me.
22.
Yep,
So
84 and 56. So, all right, here we go. 0, 8 and 5 is
84 and
13. Carry the
56 is
140.
140. Yeah, there are
Yep.
140 games. So 22 games left. That's almost a shoe in for steals. For homers, that basically means what? He's got 6 homers left to do it. 22 games is one every 4.5, 5.5 games.
Yep. And if you looking at and pulling up his quick stack, I want to get this because we can also look at it for this way. This year, he's homering once every 12.4 at bats. Assume 4 at bats a game. He'll hit a home run every third game. That's under our quick maths that we
There
just did there. So, yep. Yeah, I mean,
Now, here's the question
this
for
is
you.
insane.
If he does that, is he the automatic? Like, is he right now the automatic NL MVP? Or does it take getting 50-50 to do it? Or if the Mets make the playoffs, does Francisco Lindor have a leg to stand on?
I think it's going to be Ohtani either way.
I do think there's some interesting numbers for Lindor coming down the stretch.
It is not a knock on Lindor in any way. It's just what Ohtani has just been paramount. And it could be maybe next year is when we start getting into like the Ohtani almost hurts himself in a way in the MVP voting because he keeps getting good and we expect more. And it gets to the point where
Right.
Ohtani only went 35 this year.
Right. It's like that double Heisman, right? Where the second one you have to be so much better than the first because
Yep.
you've already put up the numbers we saw for the first one. So if you repeat, it's not as special, which is hard to say about a 50-50 season. But But yeah, it's certainly an interesting case. I do think he gets to 50-50. Now, if he gets to 50-50 and he's anticipated to pitch next year, although I hear an argument for him not being a $2 million a year DH because they're not paying him 70 million right
Mhm.
now. They're only paying him 2 million so you could DH him.
Yeah.
If he pitches and he goes 50-50 this year, is he the bona fide, no questions asked, number one overall pick next year in fantasy?
I already think on sites where when you draft Ohtani, you get both. He's already the number one, without a doubt. Like on ESPN, I'm pretty sure you get Ohtani the hitter, Ohtani the pitcher combined. He's clear cut number one.
Does it
Just
matter if they come out and say, you know what, we're not going to risk it. His bat's too important. We can backfill in the rotation, and he's not going to pitch. Does that change your mind because he is only a util guy?
yeah,
Unless you're on some crazy format that still counts him as an outfielder from like his Japanese days, like
I'd
10,
I'd
10 years ago.
would love to play in one of those leagues. That'd be cool. I don't ultimately with the numbers that he's doing. I don't really care if it's util only. I'll make kind of the lineup work and go with him. So yeah, I think ultimately from basically as we look at it, the number one pick next year probably. I mean, I think it's probably going to end up being Ohtani, but if you're going to have the conversation, it's probably what Ohtani, Bobby Witt is probably where you're looking at in that top
Yeah.
two spot. And then you start kind of looking at like Ellie De La Cruz and some other guys who are big dual threat or, power speed guys as well. So yeah, I think with Ohtani, I think it feels like next year, if we're not taking him at one based on what he's done, it seems like that time in, I'll relate it to fantasy football just because that's the season. But with fantasy football, it's like, well, maybe McCaffrey isn't the number one running back, and it's this guy because of all of these underlying numbers. And it's like at some point, the underlying numbers do matter. Like we're going to get to a segment talking about some second half breakouts where we're really going to hammer underlying numbers. But at some point, the overarching numbers that smack you right in the face have to matter. And we're at a
Correct.
point with Ohtani now, even if he doesn't get the 40 plus steals, there is a very real situation next year. Like if I were to tell you in 2025,
Like, does it change your mind if, we see Acuna come back fully healthy in spring training and he's raring to go and he's coming off his 40-70?
yeah, I think the conversation goes there. I would take at this point, I'm taking Ohtani and Witt
Correct.
above Acuna. But here's what I come back to with Ohtani. If I were to tell you next year, and it kind of ties back to the NL MVP conversation, if I were to tell you next year that Ohtani hits 274 with 30 home runs and 26 stolen bases, it's a good season. There's a part of you that's going to be just a little bit disappointed, right?
That's not number one overall numbers.
That's what Lindor's doing
Unless
right now.
unless
He's also pitching.
he's also pitching.
Sure.
If he's also pitching and you can kind of get 3/4 of both of those sets, then sure.
Sure.
But if the Dodgers go, he's too valuable as a bat. We'll figure out the 68 mil later. We're only paying him $2 million a year, which is peanuts for a DH. Then I'd have to, But yeah, if you can tell me that I'm going to get a 310 batting average and 50 homers and 40 steals out of him, then yes, he's number one overall. But
Yep.
it's an interesting question for sure.
I'm right there with you. And then one last thing, team specific here. Fantasy Clay Holmes has been, if as long as you don't look at the blown saves, you can get by with the save numbers that he has, but some of the other numbers aren't very good. But Yankees are in trouble if Clay Holmes is not closing out ball games. Like that bullpen is not, there are no big names in it like we've seen in recent years. And there's just a lot of questions with that. The Yankees home run or nothing approach we've seen it in years past, has come back to bite them at certain times.
Yes.
But they've always had a good bullpen that they can come back to. That's not the case this year. This bullpen is in shambles, and Clay Holmes is not making it any better. And he's supposed to be the stalwart. He's supposed to be, Mr. Reliable back there, and he's been anything but.
Yeah, remember the argument that if they sign Juan Soto, then you can't get Clay Holmes? That looks like okay, fine. Like, what is that argument now?
Holmes has I think 11 blown saves.
Yeah, it's not
I think he's 29 of 40, if I remember correctly, and that's bad. That's bad.
Yeah,
Like
it's not.
bad.
Yeah, that's bad for the White Sox. And,
It is bad
and
for the White Sox, yes.
I mean,
Poor
real
White
quick,
Sox.
I brought him up. I'm going to go on a fun fact. As of 2 days ago, I have to do the
Mhm.
math on this again today, but I won't do that. But as of 2 days ago, the AL Central was 38 games under 500.
Okay.
The top 4 teams in the AL Central are above 500. 3 of the teams in the AL Central are in the AL playoffs. If they were to happen now, they would be in the wild card and a division winner. That's how bad the White Sox have been, that the entire division, which has 3 playoff teams, is 38 games under 500.
Yep. And if you want to take it a
It's
step
it's
farther,
they're 5-45 in the last 50 games,
yep.
which
They
no team in the history of baseball has ever been.
they are
Ever.
44 games back of a
Of
wild card
fourth
spot
place.
or of a wild card spot.
Yeah, they're like 40 games back of fourth place in their division.
They are 27 games behind the team above them. That's insane. Run differential,
It's,
negative 303. Now, the
it's
truthers,
unbelievable.
expected win-loss, 39 and 102. Far more palatable, but
I will
expected
say they
numbers don't
do
get
have
you anything.
27 blown saves, which is about as much as Clay Holmes has by himself. Um,
That is true.
so at least they've been in positions uh, to win. But yes, they are 38 and a half games back of the Tigers, who are in fourth place in the AL Central.
Yep. They're so
I
bad.
mean,
What a bad team.
it's unbelievable. I guess that's a record that may be broken. The 62 Mets for the worst record in the history of baseball.
We will talk
Um,
about that when it happens.
yes.
It's not if, when.
No. What was that bet you made earlier this year about the team with the worst record?
Oh, I think no, it was just that there would be teams that lose more games than the A's.
Yes,
That was what I
guaranteed.
had said. So, and we hit that one for
Yes.
sure.
Anyway, getting back to the Yankees bullpen, which is about as bad as the White Sox. Um, it's not good when you have Aaron Boone this late in the season talking about how he's just going to have to feel it out and go by like who's got the freshest arm.
Mhm.
That's a bad spot to be in. And then you've only got 4 starting pitchers right now. I mean, Heel is expected back, as is Clark Schmidt. I did see Heel talked about as maybe like a high leverage guy and
Yep.
not go with like a 6-man rotation. You just go with a 5-man and stick Heel in the bullpen. Maybe that's a possibility, but it's not shaping up. And this is why some folks had some issues with the Yankees to start the year. Was there's not a lot of contact outside of Juan Soto on that team. I mean, Aaron Judge, yeah, sure, but outside of those 2 guys, not a lot of contact is being made regularly. It's close your eyes and hope you hit it. Um, the starting pitching had question marks. It's kind of held up for the most part, although it's still pretty shaky coming down the stretch here. And then the bullpen's absolutely falling apart. So it could be a rough October for the Yankees.
I think it could be as well. But Matt, a couple players I want to touch on here. So
Yes.
some notable second half offensive breakouts, and kind of obviously we're not really dropping any of these guys down the stretch here. We're more so kind of looking to 2025 a little bit here. But let's go to Pittsburgh. O'Neal Cruz opened first half of the season per the splits, hit 246, 438 slug, 14 homers, and 7 stolen bases. But here in the second half, he's only hit 4 home runs, but he's hitting 308. And the knock on Cruz was that he was always maybe not going to hit for a high average because there was a lot of swing and miss in his game. He does also have 14 stolen bases. So he's basically swapped power for speed. And then when you look at some of the underlying metrics, like we talked about, while the hard contact is up, he's also hitting a ton more ground balls, which explains the power drop. So what do we make of the second half Cruz? Like, I'm still not convinced he's going to be a high average hitter in the major. Like right now, he's even hitting a little bit below 270. But if you would have told me at the beginning of the year that at this point of the season, Cruz is hitting 270, I'd be jumping for joy because I'd be ecstatic that he was that high.
Yeah, I think. Look, he missed basically all of last year. He played 9 games, right?
Yep.
He missed I mean, this is the most games he's played in a single season in the majors in since he's come up, right? He played 2 games in 2021, so he came up very late in the year, and then 87 games in 2022. So I think he's kind of hit the point where it's starting to click for him, right? They talk about how you need the certain number of at bats in the
Mm.
majors or plate appearances in the majors before it clicks. Usually it's about 600 plate appearances. They say basically like a season um, or so. That's about where he hit in the middle part of this year. So I think it's starting to click. Look, he still has a 31% strikeout rate on the year, which you would love to see that come down. But if I'm going to get a 2020 guy with a 270 average and he's still putting up a 31% strikeout rate, I'll deal with it. Like, you know, so go looking forward, I do think this is a sign of things to come for O'Neal Cruz. There's never really been a doubt about the skills that the large man possesses. Um, other than, is he going to stay at shortstop being 6'7"? I think he can at this point, which is weird to say. Um, but I do think it's a good um, sign of things to come going into next year. Again, assuming he stays healthy.
He's made 5 starts in the outfield. So depending on your league setup, maybe a couple more starts and he'd become outfield and shortstop eligible, which will never complain for a second position, which could
Correct.
be fun for 2025. Quick yes or no question here, Matt. I placed a bet at the beginning of the year that O'Neal Cruz would go 30-30 at pretty big. Okay. I won't even ask the
I
question again.
mean,
He's at 18 homers and 21 stolen bases right now,
yeah, that's going to be a monster 3 week stretch for him.
especially for
That's
a guy who has a
always.
ground ball rate above 50% right now,
I
too, in the
mean, if he
second
had
half.
more than 4 homers in the second half and he was more like, let's say 23 and 21, I would say it's possible. But I mean, getting 12 homers in 3 weeks when you've put up 4 in 2 months, little hard to deal with there.
If you had to guess when his last home run was, when do you think it was?
His last
This is
home
a
run.
losing. This is a losing bet for you. I'm putting you on the spot here, but
Yeah, to be honest,
August
I don't
9th,
think yeah,
almost a
that sounds
calendar
good.
month.
By the way, apparently, I think Aaron Judge's last home run came on Paw Patrol. For those with kids who watch it, he was on he and his dogs were in an episode a couple of weeks ago, or a week or so ago. It was
No,
his last home run.
haven't watched Paw Patrol, so
Yeah, my kid who's homesick right now is watching it. She's watched it all morning.
gotcha. Well, bullish on O'Neal Cruz. Another one. Let's go to Tampa Bay with a particular outfielder. I believe he's Josh Lowe.
Yes.
I always mess these. I always mess these up, and I always ask you
The
for
only one the only one that's Lau is Brandon.
Brandon. Buddy Brandon, another lefty who can't hit left-handed pitching, much like Josh Lowe. When you look at Lowe, though, in the second half, 290 compared to a 211 in the first half, 4 homers and 13 stolen bases. For me, a lot of the numbers look good. I think it's ultimately just him being able to stay healthy and establish a rhythm. I really think like the talent has always been there, and everyone's been. I remember back in the Discord and the Fantasy Alarm Discord prior to like drafts, everyone was so excited to draft Josh Lowe. It always just came down to the injuries and if he could stay healthy. And he's finally been able to establish a rhythm. And really, to no surprise, really, a lot of the numbers are kind of coming through. So, do you think this is a matter of just him being healthy and establishing a rhythm, or have there been some improvements that you've noticed?
No, I think it's mostly that, right? We've talked. Look, this was a big talking point in last year's playoffs when the 100-win teams all got knocked out early because they took the week off and they lost their rhythm and they, um, couldn't get it going over the course of a 5 or 7 game series. Health and availability is a huge thing for baseball players. Getting into a rhythm, getting into a routine, you know, getting used to seeing the ball come at you from a variety of different angles certainly helps you improve, right? This is a guy who clearly was incredible coming off an incredible year last year. Went 20-30 with a 292 average. Um I think the other part of it is that Tampa's offense has kind of gotten going a little bit here down the stretch, even though they sold some people off and clearly aren't really trying to play for anything. I do think that getting into a flow as a group has also helped um, some of their numbers going up. But I don't see a huge telltale split if we're looking at like more advanced numbers between the first and second half.
Mhm.
I don't see that big of a change. I mean, he's hitting for more pop and a higher average away from home. I don't know if there's been slightly more away games for Tampa in the second half. I don't know. I don't know their schedule that well to tell you that, but generally speaking, it's not a huge enough difference for me to discredit he's just healthy and getting into a rhythm.
Yep, and maybe a little higher hard contact rates and maybe seeing the ball a little bit more, but,
Yeah,
yeah,
but
I
I mean
think
I mean seeing the ball better for sure, but that's not really going to make an 80-point jump in your batting average though.
that is true. That is true, and then if you don't like 80-point batting average jumps, let's talk about 90 because Jackson Chiro hit 243 in the first half, 339 in the second half. Haters are gonna go, "Well, his 362 BABIP in the second half, far better than that 291 BABIP. No way that's holding." The batted ball metrics have all gone the right way in the
Okay.
second half. So for me, when you look Churio, though, 9 homers, 10 stolen base in the first half, and we're at 10 and 10. So he's picked up the pace a little bit. Ultimately, this strong second half is really going to inflate that price in 2025 fantasy baseball drafts. However, I'll be the bearer of bad news. I don't think he's as bad as he was in the first half. I don't know if he's this good that he's in the second half either. I think it's very easy to say he's going to fall somewhere in the middle there, but that's where I keep coming back to it, true. But I'll tell you, this second half though, he's going to be hella expensive in drafts next year compared to like 2 months ago where we thought his price point would be.
Correct. I don't think he's a 340 hitter. That's quite clear. I don't think. I mean, he's a 5 tool guy. He came in with a 60 grade hit tool, or 55 grade hit tool, 60 grade power. But I don't think he's a 340 hitter. I think if you look at his season stats, like his season slash line, I think that's about where he works out, right? 280 average, 330 on base, 470 slug, going 2020, if not, potentially a 30-30 guy coming up in a season or two. Sure. I'm a little bit intrigued that he's not getting as much talk for rookie of the year
Hmm.
as the numbers kind of bear out that he probably should be. Um, a 2020 rookie year with a 280 average is pretty good. Now I know that he's up against Jackson Merrill and a little guy for your team named Paul Skeens, who's been ridiculous.
Mhm.
Um, but it is a little surprising that his name isn't being bandied about more for rookie of the year type considerations, which again doesn't do anything to push down his stock price for next year.
Yep. I would agree with that one. So a lot of interesting things there. And honestly, as we get closer to the end of the year, we'll kind of take a look at some other kind of guys that break out or maybe are struggling and try to look into 2025, see into that crystal ball a little bit here. But as we wrap up the episode, got to do our staple here, Matt, waiver wire pickups and weekend streamers. We're going to start on the waiver wire. I'll give you two names first and foremost. I'm going to take a cop out. If Jacob DeGrom is still available in your league, go pick him up immediately. Don't stop, pause podcast. Go pick him up, come back. Don't let him sit out there any longer than he has to. It sounds like he'll make one more rehab start probably sometime later next week. We'll see DeGrom back with the Rangers. So make sure you add him. And then I am looking at Aaron Savale. He's picked up his sweeper usage in his last couple of starts, as well as his curveball has usage on that pitch has moved up a little bit. And the last couple starts have been pretty good. Have been pretty good to say the least. As I pulled it up here, he's got against the Giants, 7 innings, 7 Ks, no runs, comes back and falls 1 inning short of a quality start against the Cardinals, but 7 strikeouts. It's always been the knock on Savali. If he doesn't strike out enough batters, he's got 14 over his last 12 innings of work. Anything on those two?
I like both of them. I do think it's interesting that they're both more available than they probably should be.
Yep.
Um, I'm with you. I'll toss in Dylan Cruz is for some reason still available in like a quarter of Fantrax leagues. I'm not sure why. um, he should be he should be owned. He just should be. And by the way, going back to the NL Rookie of the Year stuff, Jackson Churio is not that far behind Jackson Merrill in terms of F4, and he's also ahead of Paul Skeens in F4 right now.
Hmm.
So, um, certainly intriguing. I mean, I can understand why he's the third guy there, but the second half is he's right there in homers and steals and RBI and runs with Merrill, who's got a better average, but you know,
National League over at DraftKings Sportsbook. National League Rookie of the Year odds: Jackson Merrill minus 1,000, Paul Skeens plus 500, Jackson Churio plus 1,200
Jackson Merrill is minus 1,000.
for NL Rookie of the Year.
Has he had that good of a last month that he completely flipped the script on Paul Skeens,
Yeah, that's what
who
I'm
like
seeing, my
3 weeks
friend.
ago was like minus 3,000?
Nope. I'm just telling you what I'm seeing.
That's ridiculous.
So, anyway, let's go. Let's finish it off. Weekend streamer. I'll let you go first with a little. I guess dare I say home cooking.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick a little bit on your team here, Colby, using my team to do it.
Be a shame if you got muted as you start talking about this.
Mitchell Parker, one of the 4 lefties in the Nats rotation, is facing the Pirates on Sunday. Since August 1st, the Pirates have not been very good against Southpaws. They've struck out the most, 32.5% of the time against left-handed pitching. They also have the third worst WOBA and weighted runs created plus against Southpaws. Mitchell Parker's been pretty decent. Sure, the Nats lost his last start 14-1, but he didn't give up that many runs. In fact, he still got a quality start out of it: 6 innings, 3 earned, 8 strikeouts. Um, and if you take out the blowups on the road against the Phillies and the Brewers, 2 division leading teams, that accounts for 14 of his 37 road earned runs in just 3 2/3 innings. His ERA on the road drops from 5.98 to 3.98. So I don't think the Pirates have it in them to do what the Phillies and Brewers did to Mitchell Parker. So we're going to stream him. He's available in a little more than half of Fantrax leagues right now.
And I'm going to go to Cleveland with Gavin Williams. He should toe the rubber on Sunday. Does go up against the Dodgers, which I don't love, but hey, it's slim pickings for weekend streamers at this point. But Gavin Williams getting further removed from injuries and his late start to the season. I think he's gotten better as the year has gone on. Curveball and slider usage are both trending up, and the results have followed. Over his last 7 starts, 3 or fewer earned runs in 5 of those outings. And in his last 2 outings, yes, both did come against Kansas City, but 12 strikeouts across 12 innings of work. And if we go back to his last 7 starts, 41 strikeouts across 35 1/3 innings with a 1.16 whip. So just has to keep the walks in check. Sometimes he'll lose command a little bit. He does have 2 plus walks in 4 straight outings. So that's the one thing I'm a little concerned with against the Dodgers. But you need a weekend streamer, take a look at Gavin Williams. If you also
Yeah,
need a
by the way,
weekend,
you pick on the Royals offense. They're only 30 runs behind the Dodgers offense.
it's a good,
And
especially at home.
yeah,
Check out that team at home. But if you need some weekend streamers, take a look at Gavin Williams and Mitchell Parker. Go add Jacob deGrom immediately if he's still available in your league. Good luck to the Yankees with that bullpen. Congrats, Matt Chapman and Kyle Tucker. Good to see you back after a bone bruise kept you out for 3 months with a supposed fracture as well. But glad to have you back. So make sure you head over to fantasyalarm.com. If you're not a family member, subscribe today. Get access to the Discord if you have those pressing lineup questions or ad drops for the weekend as you chase fantasy baseball stardom and winning your leagues. Become a family member today. Get in the Discord. Talk to us there. Make sure you give Matt and I follows on X. I'm at Colby R. Conway. You can find Matt Selz at the Selzman. And again, become a family member today. Get all the great access we have over there. Fantasy football is not right around the corner anymore. It's here. We got a ton of great football content. So Matt, to close out, I said I would give it to you. What's the prediction for tonight?
the Chiefs are going to win. I think it's reasonably close. I think it's probably a field goal, maybe a late touchdown, but it's pretty close. It'll be an entertaining game, but I do think the Chiefs win.
I am right there with you. So check out all the great content, not just baseball, but football and every other sport that we have here at Fantasy Alarm. Become a family member today. Give us a follow on X, and we will see you next week with the newest edition of Caught Stealing.